with streaming together. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so I brought you another game of Karpov Kasparov World Championship match 1985. I also add you in the classroom. I think you
Yeah, yeah,
are
I am in.
almost. Yeah, you're in. Awesome. So, as I said, another game of Karpov Kasparov World Championship match, Game 4, 1985. And you might think this will be another episode of basically the third episode of Isolated Pawns, but it is not. It will be something else, but I don't wanna make a spoiler right now. So first of all, what would you say about this position? White played rook d2. Karpov last move was rook to d2. Evaluate this position for me a little bit, would you?
Sure. So I think the fact that black has an IQP and we have a great blockade has to be definitely a structure value that we have, so a plus in our position. Um, with some bishop f3, rook d1, I think we will pressure the pawn very easily. Um, I don't like that we don't have the dark squared bishop. Um, but okay, I think our knight is also pretty strong, so I would definitely prefer white. But I don't think this is like a tremendous advantage.
Yeah,
Um,
it's nothing anything like significant, right? It's just kind of a symbolic edge, as you said. IQP, like IQP for you guys, IQP means isolated queen pawn. So this is like this is what Forky was talking about. And yeah, our knight is making a beautiful blockade. But what did we learn about isolated pawns? What was the principle? I kind of pointed out a couple of times.
um,
It has something to do with the blockading square and around. I mean this triangle
yeah,
here.
these three squares are probably the most important ones in the position, and the fact that black has a dark square bishop and we don't have definitely
Yeah,
favors black.
exactly. So actually, if it would be like without if it was without these two bishops, so only knight and only these bishops. So if the position was like before without the white's lighter bishop and black's darker bishop, obviously the position would be very very one sided because no one can actually target the knight on d4. But the problem is this: because of this bishop, because of this guy here, the position is just it's not that one sided as it would be without these bishops, and because this bishop can always target the knight on d4. So there should be always one heavy piece on the d file which basically protects d4 and stabilize d4. Otherwise, we don't. The last thing we want to see is this pawn structure with bishop takes d4, e takes d4. This is the last thing we want to see. I mean, of course, black black has a fixed pawn on the lie square which the bishop can target, but this is like if this position was a symbolic edge. I mean, a bishop takes d4, he takes d4 is definitely just even more like it's completely equal. The only thing that the pawn is fixed on the lie square, this will be not enough. So the question is, how would you play as black? I'm going to flip the board for you. Kasparov chose wrong, by the way. Kasparov chose wrong. The question is, would you ever take on d4? Would you ever make this straight? Or is it just enough to have the bishop on f6?
I was looking at the idea of firstly doubling up on the c file with rook dc8, and then if, for example, rook fd1, then I might take on d4 and go rook c2. But just like, I don't think we need to oblige to that straight. So even if we keep the position like so, maybe it's enough to just sit on the position.
Yeah, but if you don't take on d4, there is one like there is one line, or there is one potential trait you have to consider. But again, you have to decide if that one is beneficial for you, or you should allow it, or you should prevent it.
Oh, so you are referring
obviously
to
talking about knight takes c6.
Yeah.
That's the question. Knight takes c6 will be beneficial for black or white. That's the main question. So yeah, I mean, would you include bishop takes z4 before you go rook dc8, or you would go rook dc8 anyway, like, and just completely ignore knight takes c6? Kasparov chose wrong, by the way. And this was not the first time. I mean, I also showed you one game of the World Championship match. You remember? I think our own, like, maybe it was not the very first, but maybe it was our very first lesson. And that, I mean, from the prophylactic point of view, and also Kasparov made a lot of bad decisions positionally.
Yeah, I think he made remember. Yeah, I think that I don't really want to allow knight takes on e6.
Why?
Because, for example, probably we take with the queen, yeah. And then if he, I mean, I guess we could try to push the pawn as quickly as possible, but if we fail to do so, I still think that it will be much easier for white to try to target our d5 pawn. So knight takes, queen takes, and then, for example, rook d1. Maybe we are in time to play rook d7, rook cd7, and then push with d4, when probably the position would be completely equal.
Yeah, but in those cases, you should definitely consider e4. So yeah, Forky was considering, let's say we just make a random move, something like this. Knight takes c6, f takes c6, and Forky is talking about this plan and trying to get rid of some material and just simplify the position. But
yeah, but Tamás, I was probably trying to capture back with the queen.
You want to take with the queen?
Yeah.
All right. So you want to take with queen?
Yeah. Otherwise, I think light squares around my king are way too. I didn't even consider taking with the f pawn.
Okay.
And yeah, now try to
we'll get back to this. We'll get back to this. We'll get back to this. So you would. So what is your move? Would you take, or would you play rook dc8?
Yeah, probably I wouldn't play rook dc8 because it doesn't do anything in case of knight takes on e6, queen takes, and then I'm trying to push d4. But with my rooks on the c file, they are useless in trying to do so. So I think it's way easier to just take on d4. I don't think white has significant advantage there. So my move is taking on d4.
Taking on d4. Yeah, that was the right answer. And Kasparov played rook d8. So, yeah, I flipped the board back. And yeah, Kasparov played rook d8. That was the wrong move. That was the wrong move. Bishop takes d4 was the right move. Black should have get rid of this this knight. And in case of rook takes d4, just rook d8. This is actually kind of again that I'm always referring that Fischer Petrosian game. I think it was Petrosian. You know that knight takes c6 move.
Yeah.
That one. How they described it, it was kind of like. Also, this one is a little bit paradoxical, right? Because Black just gave up on his most active piece. But the thing is, by eliminating that or just getting rid of that Darcer bishop and the knight on d4, actually he released a lot of tension. And the bishop, it might look like a pawn. My first trainer always said that this is basically a pawn. In case of like a d5 isolated pawn, e6 bishop always looks like a pawn, and it behaves exactly like a pawn. It doesn't do anything else than protecting d5, nothing else. Of course, it covers f5 square, but f5 square doesn't need to be covered at this point. So the bishop, but it just gets the job done. And actually, there is one more very important principle we didn't. I mean, in that Karpov, it was Karpov Korchnoi, another Karpov Korchnoi. No, it was Karpov Bayavsky game in one of our other play like Karpov session. We were talking about this principle that with an isolated queen pawn, it's very, very important who is controlling over the open file, this file over here. So that the fact that Black has an isolated pawn, it basically became completely irrelevant, because this is what matters. Black's counterplay what matters. So your homework will be to check Ryazantsev Carson game. I just type in the chat, all right?
Okay, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, Ryazantsev Carson game. I think it was either Rapid or Blitz, one of the word Blitz or Rapid championship. And Carson basically, actually, he won that game. He had the isolated queen pawn, and he won that game because he controlled over the open file. And this is what mattered really in the game. Basically, okay, let's say bishop d3. White can deal with c2 square, and now Black can play rook c5 and trying to make some trades on the c file. Trade as many heavy pieces as he can, and the bishop endgame is always a draw. Always a draw. There are some exceptions. If the king can get here, so imagine all the heavy pieces disappeared from the board. The king can get here. The king can get here. Most of the cases it's a draw, unless White can create some two-swamp. But most of the cases it's a draw. It's a one-on draw, because Black is just not doing anything. He will just keep the bishop here or here, and he's not doing anything. He will just make bishop moves. Or some king moves with king c6, king d6. He's not doing anything. So this is what black goal is. It's very passive. It's not Kasparov style. Kasparov was a dynamical player, of course. It was not really what he would enjoy to do. But this is what had to be done because he just gave too much room for Karpov with this rook d8. All right, what do you do now?
Yeah, now we probably take on e6, huh?
Yeah, knight takes e6. All right, again, how would you take? Kasparov chose wrong again, by the way.
Yeah, I still think I would probably take with the queen.
Hmm.
Although I don't really like the fact that, for example, bishop f3, I will probably get like a very passive. Um, but I think taking with the f pawn is just way too weakening.
Yeah, this was a very serious decision. I mean, considering um, considering the structure, um, both both moves, queen takes e6 and f takes e6, have downsides and upsides. F takes c6 is strengthening the pawn structure. That's true. From now on, d5 pawn will not be weak because it has a little brother which takes care of him. And it feels like e6 pawn cannot be attacked that easily as d5 in case of queen takes c6. That's true. That's very true. But I think what Kasparov, I'm pretty sure he took under consideration. Maybe he didn't take it that serious. That I mean, by this f takes c6, Black seriously gave up on some very important light square on g6, which could and by g6 also f7 and everything around there. So the last thing you want to do, I mean, this is you know we were talking about this principle so many times with opposite. By the way, today's topic is opposite color bishops 2.0. This is our second game of for opposite color bishop. But I don't think, I mean, even if we check like 100 game, is still not enough to cover all like and understand fully the opposite color bishop, because it's like such an important topic and very underrated topic in my opinion. So so the last thing you want to do whenever it comes down to opposite color bishops is weakening your king, right? Because then your bishop on so weakening those squares which is like the opposite color with your bishop. This is exactly what happened. So now the principle, what everyone knows about opposite color bishops, that basically when your king is getting under attack in the opposite color which your bishop which you have, I mean, your bishop is moving on, basically your bishop becomes completely like helpless, right? And white will always attack with an extra piece, which is this guy over here. So even if f takes c6 or queen takes c6 is weakening d5, or just you know um, just leave it a little bit more vulnerable. I would put it this way. But in the very like worst case scenario, we can just push d4, right? And after e takes d4, we just play queen d6. I'm just talking about a scenario like this. This is still so much easier to hold, in my opinion. No matter Karpov or no matter who you play, because basically you are blockading this pawn on a dark square. This bishop cannot really do anything about that. It doesn't really matter if the pawn is here or here. You can still make a blockade. It doesn't matter if the bishop is pawn is here or here. Whenever he pushes, I mean, who will, or worst case, you put the bishop on d6. You're controlling over the very important open file. Your bishop is a monster, but most importantly, your king is safe. Your king is safe, even though you're down a pawn, but your king is safe. That's very important. So I think even this is easier to hold from a practical point of view than compare what happened in the game with f takes c6. Right now, maybe we don't see how how heavy this decision was. But yeah, I mean, I'm about to show you. All right, how would you play now with white? There is a very nice looking move. I'm pretty sure you're calculating this, right? With queen g6.
Yeah, but I don't like the fact that the pawn is hanging.
Also, yeah, but the question is, do you make enough damage in black's king side? Let's say if you just build up this plan with queen g6, bishop d3, queen a7 check. Is it enough?
I don't think so, because the bishop defends everything.
Yeah, bishop defends everything. The king will just just go to f8 and even e7, and the bishop is just well stabilizing. And I don't really think we have time for this type of pawn march and just trying to deflect the bishop from e7, because in the meantime black is going to be very fast. Like playing rook c1, even taking on b2, sometimes rook c2. But okay, the bishop is on d3. But like black is also making some moves in the meantime. And also for this plan, we need like 2 temples, and in the meantime, like black is also doing something. So queen g6, it doesn't do that much damage. We should find something else instead. If you are if you in a blitz game, you got this position in the blitz game, what would you play in like this fast in a second?
Rook d1 and
d1.
Yeah, I think.
My father was right in the chat. He would play bishop g4. Yes. Why? We don't really need the rook on d1. Why?
Yeah.
Because why would you? I mean, rook fd1 would make perfect sense if the pawn was on f7, because we just put extra pressure on d5 pawn. But very likely, this half open file will not get like any more open, right? We will not push e4. Black will not push d4. That's for sure, because he will just weaken even more light squares. So this d file will very likely will not get open. So why do we double up our rook there right now? Maybe later. But not at the moment. Not at the moment. Right now we don't need to stabilize. Of course, later maybe black will starting to push d4, and like also by giving up on some light squares, he will get, especially in case of e4, bishop d4, he will create some threats as well. But right now he just played bishop g4. What's the point of this move?
Yeah, we're pressuring the weakness.
Yes.
I mean, I saw the move, but I didn't see the follow-up.
The point is, there is no follow-up. So the point is, like, how many times did you see in Karpov's games there is something forced, something straightforward?
Okay,
we are playing for a long-term plan. So very likely, black, one of black's, I mean, king f7 would be too much, right? To protect the e6, because it's just running into a lot of nasty stuff. So king f7. Let's just assume that black will not protect e6 with the king f7. That means he can't really push e5, because not only the rook is hanging, but he's just weakening d5, and again giving up on another couple of light squares. So one of the heavy pieces always have to keep an eye on e6, which means he can create less threats in our camp, right? So this is basically a long-term plan. Our bishop is perfect on g4. I'm not saying this bishop will stay there until the end of the game, but right now it slows black's counterplay down, and we are playing. This is basically a long-term plan. The reason why I think this f takes c6 was a really bad decision by Kasparov is, he has to defend now. He's basically he has zero he doesn't have any dynamical counterplay, and he was a dynamical player. He was not a defensive player. That's why I didn't understand why didn't he take with queen takes c6. That would give more dynamical play, and also he didn't have to like take care of his king side. But his bishop g4 just pointing out very nicely that black actually has to defend this position like in a long term because he has weakness. He has a huge weakness. If black is losing d5, as I showcased, like pushing d4, nothing really happened, right? But if black is losing this guy, his position collapses immediately. So, I mean, losing d5 in case of queen takes c6 option, not the end of the world. He can still like fight for a draw because his king side at least is very safe. But if black is losing e6, his position, he can just resign right after. That's why bishop g4 was a very good move. It's a long-term plan. Kasparov played rook c4. How would you defend the bishop?
Maybe just queen g6.
Queen g6 isn't queen g6 allows rook c1 maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, probably.
Maybe. I'm not so sure if rook c1 is actually a thing. It's just kind of a little bit weakening the first rank.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
yeah.
Sorry. Maybe just h3 then, making a luft.
Yes, h3. Exactly, h3. This is what Karpov played. Okay. Bishop a3 was also an option, but a3 is a little bit more logical because in the same time we are protecting the bishop, we actually made a luft. This will be very, very important later because maybe we can free the queen a little bit sooner. That's it. I mean, a3 was a very logical move, stabilizing this guy. h5 is never the case. g6 h5 because why would black play g6 at any point? So the bishop is just stable enough on g4 thanks to this h3. Kasparov tripled up on the c file. Potentially he wants some rook c1 ideas. Karpov played queen d3, moving out from some rook c1. Of course, now it was not threatening, but later, I mean, he just winning one tempo after queen d3, and after rook c1 he can maybe actually rook c1 was it was not threatening, right? Because rook c1 we take with queen takes. And we first we take on e6 with an intermezzo, and then we take the queen. But anyway, rook c1 was not possible. Kasparov played king h8, logical move, moving out from bishop takes e6 tempos, and I mean maybe right now it's not going to be easy to put the bishop somehow on this diagonal. It's not so easy, and whenever this happens, the king can always run back to f8. By the way, as I know, Kasparov just criticized this move a little bit. Maybe because he's just losing time. Whenever this happens, right, or with queen g6, bishop e2, bishop d3. I mean, he just lost the tempo. The queen. I mean, it doesn't really matter if the king is here or here, probably because it doesn't matter if we take this guy with the check or not. Mm-hmm. If we take this guy in general, the game is over. So it doesn't really matter if we take this with the check. So the king could just easily stay on g8 and just maybe he spared one tempo and like he can run to f8, e7 a little bit earlier. I don't know, but I'm not so sure. I didn't really check this game from an engine point of view because of course modern engines just ruins the fun. Now Karpov played rook fd1, logical move. Now he brought the rook one step closer, and whenever black plays rook c1, the rook is just very nicely protected, and against a potential d4 pushes, we are just keeping an extra eye on d4. I mean, I know earlier I kind of criticized your rook fd1, but first we could do something else.
Mhm.
So now it was not so easy to like improve more pieces. And before Karpov figures out which piece can be improved in long term, he just brings a little bit closer, to the center, his last remaining piece. Karpov played a5. It's also planned. Nothing really happened. So maybe he thought that, okay, rook fd1 doesn't really change the position. He will just make a pawn march and potentially fixing this guy on dark square. And also, if somehow black can push the pawn all the way to b3 without losing it, this rook c2 all of a sudden becomes available. So black cannot really lose anything by pushing, by advancing his queenside pawns, and it just creates even more like space in the queen side. How would you play now? I mean, Karpov made a mistake here, but it was very difficult to foresee why it was a mistake. He played b3. He thought that, actually giving up on this c3 square is not that relevant. It's not that important. But actually, it was important because of a forced line. Probably bishop. Wait, I'm not saying what was the right move, because it happened in the game as well. I'm just saying why b3 was not so great. All right, rook c3, queen e2. It's not that big. It's not that. I mean, the fact that we gave up on the c3 square for the rook is not a big deal. Nothing really happened, because at least we just protected b2, and the pawn is on b3. Now we still don't see why it was a little bit inaccurate. Queen e2. Kasparov played rook f8. Sometimes he can play bishop h4, and maybe he thought that, okay, there is no need to triple up anymore on the c file, because he can't really make trades. E6 is always hanging, so he can't really get the rook to c2 or to c1. So now, even with the queen and the rook combined, without an extra rook, black is still controlling over the c file. So there was no need to keep another rook on the c file. Rook is probably doing more. At least it's just defending some squares in the king side. Very logical move. And now, how would you play now? 3+1 rule. This is another very nice game where we have enough time to use our 3+1 rule, which was.
I think we probably want to change the pawn structure. I'm looking at e4, which seems very tempting for me.
E4.
And of course, if d4, we play e5. If he takes, I don't think that's good with probably rook d6.
Forky, how many Karpov games did we check so far? Right?
Yeah.
How many times did you see Karpov pushing this type of e4 before he made 25 preparing moves?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not saying e4 is not going to be a thing later, but this is exactly a position where we can make a lot of preparing moves. So not immediately. Like maybe e4 can be an interesting thing. Just like opening up the d file and just immediately targeting black's pawn structure. But the problem is we also giving up on some squares. So before we put everything to the right place, and we are 100% sure. So of the 3+1 rule, probably the pawn structure is the most important, I would say, because that's permanent. That's the only permanent thing. Being prophylactic, not permanent. We can change the places of our pieces. We can always put something back where it came from. Worst case, we lose a tempo. In this position, it doesn't matter because black just played rook f8. I mean, yeah, he didn't improve his position. Black cannot improve his position. This is what Karpov loved when he was in control, just killing all the counterplay of your opponent, and you can freely maneuver your pieces for the next 30 moves without making a single difference in the position. But the pawn structure is permanent. You can't change that. If you take a pawn or if you push a pawn, it's over. I'm not saying over, but you can't change it. You can put it back. You can undo it. But improving pieces is always like you can always undo it. Like, okay, trading pieces is also somewhat very important because it's not like crazy house. You can't put your pieces back to the board. So before you are making a very committing e4 move, you have to make absolutely sure that this is beneficial for you. By the way, I don't think it's beneficial for us. Why do I say that? Because we're just opening up this diagonal. Why is this important? I'm just thinking loudly here. So let's say imagine a scenario like this. All of a sudden, look what we made here. A huge target. This was not available for black like a couple of moves earlier. But all of a sudden, we just created. I mean, e6 was weak anyway, but we also like opened up the position a little bit, and we just gave black space, to improve his pieces. So if you play e4, you have to be absolutely sure that it's beneficial for you. But before that, you have time to improve. Always try to improve first. Which piece can be improved here? We can't really make trades, right? We can't. Mm-hmm. We are not. We don't really have to be prophylactic about anything. Sometimes bishop h4 is a thing, but I think we can just handle that. Worst case, we play rook f1. Mm-hmm. Nothing really changed. We can also play g3, but we have to make sure that there are no sacrifices. So we don't have to be prophylactic about anything, right? So. Yep. Can't retrade pieces. We don't really want to change the pawn structure just yet. Nothing to be prophylactic about. So it's time to prepare our pieces. That's the best, because that means your opponent is without counterplay.
Yeah, I'm thinking, how can I like improve my queen? I think it's most improvement needed piece.
When we are talking about improving pieces, we are usually not talking about the queen. Queen is a long range piece. It can move fast on the board, like it can move really fast on the board. So mainly we are talking about like rooks or minor pieces. So if you want, in a couple of moves, like the queen can always get here, like anytime. It can get anywhere almost. Actually, now that I'm thinking, I don't really like Kasparov's last move. He didn't criticize this move, but let me criticize his move. I know I'm no one compared to Kasparov. We are both grandmasters, but not the same level. But I think if he kept his rook on c8, this plan was probably, I'm not saying it was not available, but it was maybe not that, not that strong. Now we got access to something else as well. Which you still could make if the rook was on c8, but maybe it's even more powerful.
Okay, so maybe I'm thinking about getting the bishop back to b1 h7 diagonal, and I think the only way to do so is bishop h5, bishop g6, and then we
Exactly. The bishop get the job done on g4. We could improve our queen. I know I said queens cannot really get improved, but actually our queen was kind of stuck on b1. In this case, yeah, we improved our queen. So we freed the queen, we put it to e2, which is like, because from b1 it was only like watching this diagonal, but from e2 it's just a little bit more flexible in that way. We managed to prevent all the counterplay, like what black was intending to do in the queen side. So that this bishop just slowed black down a little bit. It got the job done. So now it's time to just rethink the position of this bishop, and maybe it will be, as you said very nicely, the bishop will be a monster on this diagonal. How can we do that? Bishop h5. And here comes my suggestion that maybe rook f8 wasn't the best idea, because now rook c2 is not available. And if black goes back to c8, now we are on time to deal with rook c2.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm not so sure if, let's say, black just played a random move like b6, whatever. I'm not so sure if, because rook c2 was not available due to bishop takes c6 ideas, right? Because black is just losing material here. He also gets a2, but we get d5, and we will have very, very strong pawns. And these guys, I don't think this is going to give like enough counterplay. Maybe, I don't know, but of course it just too committing again for Kasparov. So because of e6 was hanging, black didn't really have access to this rook c2. But since the bishop is moving away from this diagonal, maybe rook c2 is a thing. I don't know if like trading one rook down, it actually who will get benefited by this. I don't know. Interesting question. So Kasparov rook f8, bishop h5, and now I'm going to show you why b3 was a little bit inaccurate, but of course it was impossible to see, impossible to impossible to foresee everything in advance. And now look at this move, rook c5. Actually, I lied because I checked some positions with engines, but not because I was also looking for better defense. What Kasparov did, so I was mainly like looking for defenses, not like better ways to play for Karpov. But actually, this position, like earlier when Karpov played b3, I kind of checked that position with engine, and that was a mistake because of this rook c5. You will see why. So the bishop will use this square, not the rook. And actually, Kasparov didn't take this under consideration, I think. And let's say bishop g6, and now black has bishop c3, and all of a sudden look how strong this bishop will become. Mm-hmm. Rook c2 and e5. And the problem is we can't really play a rook d3. Black just play rook f6, and the bishop can get back to h5, which of course bishop would be so much better here. So we have to play rook c2 and now e5. And all of a sudden, I mean, black's coordination is so much better, right? We can't really use this diagonal because always running into e4, and the queen can swing to the king side as well. Yeah. So this would be the dynamical approach what I think Kasparov was seeking during the game, but he just didn't find it. He didn't find this, but it's not an easy move. So it feels like your rook is so active on c3, and all of a sudden you just move it back to c5. It's not easy. These type of moves are very difficult to find, and actually realizing that your bishop needs this square to push e5. And actually, why not e5 immediately? Because d5 was hanging. So first, black is protecting this guy, and then he will get access to this. Right? He played b5, which is logical. As I said earlier, he is just trying to advance his pawns, trying to make queen side even more open by pushing a4 or pushing b4. I don't know. And like in some endgames, whenever, let's say, he will get access to this guy, his pawns are already more advanced, so he can create pass pawns right away. Makes a lot of sense. Bishop g6. He played bishop d8. Not so sure why. Maybe he was considering to bring the bishop this way and trying to open up this diagonal for the bishop, but it's not going to be easy. Karpov played bishop d3. Now this guy is hanging, of course, b4, and now he played queen g4. Okay. Yeah, but I don't know why did he need bishop d8 for that. And Kasparov made a very nice defense. How does he deal with queen g6? Queen e8. I'm not so sure if the bishop was here. Why was it bad? I don't know. I think he can just move it back at any time, so it wasn't really relevant. All right. Now, question: 3+1 rule. Can we improve more pieces? Do we have to be prophylactic about? Should we change the pawn structure, or can we trade some pieces? I think we can just exclude the exchanging pieces part. Mm-hmm. It's the only way to exchange pieces is queen g6. This is not what we want to do. We are trying to attack, not fully attack, but we wanna keep this option open. because the king is so much weaker. So if your opponent's king is weaker, we don't exchange queens. That's a very important principle. Also, rook c2 doesn't really do anything because we don't want to give him a pass pawn on c3. But there is no point of rook c2. So I think we can exclude, exchanging pieces. So is it improving pieces, changing the pawn structure, or being prophylactic about and just making some more preparing moves? By the way, this was move 32, so most likely they already entered the time trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So all these moves, all the following moves were like was probably played under serious pressure. This position was, by the way, holdable with black. So even after Karpov's move, it was, we are not finding a winning move here. It just, in a time trouble, we are in a time trouble, like you always have to find, the most challenging moves, which is also like put a lot of pressure on your opponent. You had a plan earlier, which I criticized, but not because of like in a principle reasons, because maybe we were not ready for that. We just made a couple of preparing moves in the meantime. The last time we saw this move.
Yeah, I feel like we have to move our bishop first. But I don't really like the idea of playing bishop g6. He has just queen e7, maybe queen g5 next, and our bishop is a pretty badly placed because we have to probably trade queens there.
Yeah, bishop g6 is not doing much. I mean, why would we we want to use this square for the queen. So now at the moment the queen is kind of stuck. I mean, it's not stuck, but it has to like stay on this diagonal. Otherwise, queen g6, and that's not going to be very pleasant for black. So the queen has to stay here. Why would we play bishop g6 and just allowing queen e7, as you said? Yeah, bishop g6 is not the move we are looking for here. We wanna keep this option open. So
I think
the question is,
I wanna play for e4, so I wanna move my bishop first to b1, I think. But I don't like the fact that he plays bishop b6 then. And if
e4 is a double-edged move, just like earlier. But it feels like we are more ready for this than when you said, because you wanted to have this with the g4 bishop. Of course,
true.
e4 now it makes so much more sense because our bishop is on the right diagonal, and also his queen became less passive, and our queen became more active. So e4 only makes sense now. This is exactly what happened. I'm not so sure if we really want to. I mean, do you know why I like the bishop on d3 in terms of e4? Because whenever black takes, or in general, this rook doesn't really have this rank. Many times, let's say he plays bishop b6. I'm just showcasing, Anytime, let's say if you put the bishop back here, bishop b6, and let's say e4. With the bishop is so much safer. It feels so much safer because this rook cannot really do anything nasty on this rank. Maybe nothing concrete comes after this. But let's see, whenever we play g3, he always has this nasty move. So the bishop is more stable on d3. We don't really. The reason why we play e4 is not because of the d file. I mean, if black takes, he's screwed anyway. The only way to open up this file is d takes e4. But it doesn't really, in terms of d takes e4, it doesn't really matter where your bishop is, here or here, because we take queen e4 and we threatening mate. So we are pushing e4 not because of the d file, because after this trade, we are actually like mating him on h7. In this case, that doesn't really matter where the bishop is. So I think e4 is better combined with the bishop on d3. Right? This is what happened. By the way, if e4 happened, it's a double-edged move. It's a very double-edged move, but like it put a lot of pressure on Kasparov in the time trouble. So like whenever you have to make decisions. Again, like this is why I love Karpov games, because in serious situations, he just actually put his opponent into a position where he has to make decisions. And in time trouble, pawn structure decisions are the hardest. So should he take? Should he keep it this way, or should he push? Like, all right, you can decide in a time trouble, because if you just make a random move, okay, he can just make some. He can play bishop f6, bishop d8 forever, and he can just survive the time control. And whenever you push this type of e4, he will have more time to think. He will have more time to decide. But if you do it in a time trouble, and if you absolutely sure that you will not get that damaged that hard. Caused by e4, then why wouldn't you make this move? You just put your opponent in extra pressure, in time troubles. That's very, very practical, very, very practical. Kasparov played bishop g5, and I think again I think he should have played bishop b6. Should have played bishop b6, and actually after e takes d5, rook e2. He has queen f7, and he is still covering this square, and now he just created some extra pressure on f2. I think he should have played bishop b6, but somehow he kept the bishop here. Kasparov played rook c2, and again Kasparov made another move. He he criticized after the game. He took on c2. What do I always say? Whenever it comes down to these type of decisions? Always keep the pressure on. Don't make this type of commitments especially not in time trouble. So probably. I'm not so sure if rook takes c3 is never really a thing, right? Because after b takes c3, it definitely favors black. You just created a pass pawn, and it can easily be defended by bishop d2. So this pawn will never get weak, in my opinion. Maybe in some scenarios, I'm just showcasing where, okay, let's put the queen, let's say here. And maybe in case of this, maybe some double attacks. But now actually I made a good move because now black has queen f6. With the queen on e8, he was not able to protect everything. Actually, maybe he was, because he could play queen f7, queen c3, queen takes f2. So yeah, I mean taking on c3, even winning d5, I mean, this guy is so dangerous, no? Okay, it can be blockaded by bishop c2, but then I don't know. So I'm not so sure if Karpov actually wanted to take on c3, maybe. But I mean, whenever, let's say, he can always change it back. He can always put the rook back to e2 or like rook b2 or whatever. So, but okay, Kasparov took on c2. He just, I don't know. He didn't keep the pressure on. I think this was a bad decision. Bishop takes c2, and now I think Kasparov. This was the last moment where Kasparov could actually equalize. After the move he made, he had no chance to equalize. I'm not saying he was losing, but this was the last moment where the position was balanced. He should have played bishop d8. But again, this is I always trying to point out. Human beings are not making these type of moves because of their ego. Engines, of course, they don't care if the bishop came from that square. You're just trying to prove that everything is going under your control, and you just made the right decisions, and you are trying to prove it during the game, because it's just, if you, let's say, undo something and you just put the bishop back, it feels like you lost tempos. So it shows it shows that you are not confident, and you are questioning your decisions and everything. And this is where ego, steps in. And this is why human beings rarely make these type of moves. If the bishop was never even touched this square, Kasparov I think he would make this move. But since the bishop was coming this way, he didn't want to put it back. And that's a wrong mindset. I'm not saying it's easy. I did it a couple of times in my career, by the way. I could fight my ego, and I put the piece back where it came from. I just realized, okay, I lost 2 tempos, but I realized, okay, that was the right diagonal. That was the right way to do. So yeah, bishop d8 was the last moment he could actually equalize. And after ed, let's say queen d4, attacking this guy, he had queen e2. Like, he could activate his queen. If white doesn't play queen d4, then the bishop will show up on b6. So this is the only way to fight with bishop b6. But after queen e2, basically this was a draw. Queen d3, of course, he's not taking here because he can't fight, the queen and the bishop in the diagonal, but he will just take here. And I think this endgame is just still a little bit unpleasant, because maybe the bishop will get here while provoking d4. Maybe he will put the bishop back. He has some kingside pawn majority. But this should be a draw. I don't think at the Kasparov level this is anything like dangerous. Yeah, bishop d8 was the last, but he played queen c6, and this was wrong. This was wrong. Kasparov played queen e2, protecting c2 and not preventing, but fighting against the potential queen c5, queen takes f2 ideas. The queen is actually very, very strong on e2 right now. With queen c5, probably queen c5, and now, how would you play now? First of all, what is threatening? Once you see the threat, it becomes
rook f2 is a threat.
Yeah, rook takes f2 is a huge threat.
So probably just rook f1.
Yeah, but in general, even if rook takes f2 was not a thing, so let's say the bishop was on d8 or f6 or e7, whatever. Let's say that the bishop had no access to this diagonal. this rook f1 move is so strong. Why? Because how can we improve our position by somehow put the queen and the bishop on this diagonal, and then we can create some mating threats. But what is the problem? We already pushed e4, which actually made f2 a little bit weak. Now from this diagonal, black has access to this guy. So the only way to free the queen and the bishop to to get access to the desired plan is stabilizing f2. How can we do that? Only with the rook. So actually we had to make our one of our heavy pieces passive to just free the other one. It's again, it's a very hard decision. It wasn't that hard though, because rook takes f2 was just a massive threat. So he had to make this move. It would be so much harder if this rook takes f2 wasn't threatening. But even in that case, rook f1 was the right decision, because we need this. We need to get the queen on this diagonal, and the game is probably over. So this was the only way to do that. So now e takes d5, queen d3 was threatening. This is why Kasparov played queen c3. He was prophylactic. Karpov took on d1, d5, e takes d5, and again, a typical Karpov move. Basically, this is like signature move, bishop b1. We are not rushing anywhere, but first we have to make sure. So look at this. This is defended. This is defended, and this is defended. So from now on, our queen is free. We don't have to take any of these pieces anymore, any of these pieces and pawns anymore. So from now on, our queen can get one of these squares probably. Of course, the queen will have to fight against these squares. So now some dancing will just start right now. It's a very nice move. Bishop b1 was a very nice move. Queen d2, queen e5. Black with rook d8. He wanted to have queen f4. I assume, and queen takes d5 was not hanging. He just protected d5. Queen f5, king g8. Of course, queen a7 is not doing so much, because he just goes to e7 or f7. No, so I'm sorry, f7. Of course, f7, because he has to keep an eye on g7. And we can't really create even more threats. Give a check. King h8, queen g6, king g8, queen h6, king h8, and he made a very, very strong move. Of course, the rook is not possible to get improved. The only way to get some improvements is improving the bishop. Bishop f5. After queen g6, king g8, he will have bishop e6 check. Queen c3. Tries to bring the queen back to defense. Queen g6, king g8, bishop e6, king h8, bishop f5, king g8. And again, a typical Karpov move, signature Karpov move. Look at this, g3. He's not rushing anywhere. So now he would like to. What can he do now? So what does he want to do now by this g3? He wants to free the rook. How could he do that? He had to make sure that his king is safe. Where is it the safest? On g2. So right now he couldn't really free the rook, because on the first rank, I mean on this rank, there was always counterplay. But once he put the king on g2, he can free the rook, and the rook can join the party. And because the bishop and the queen was not enough to mate black, so he also needed the rook. If he brings the rook somehow this way, the game is over. But how could he do that? The queen could always get some counterplay, and if the king is not since the enemy has a dark square bishop, our luft is at the dark square, so this was not safe. What did he do? He just made a luft, and the king will get on the light square, which can be easily defended. And basically, black cannot give a check. So this g3 was just like an improving, very strong move. King f8. I mean, I'm just thinking, why didn't he play Queen? Yeah, Queen F6 was met by Queen H7, King F8, and Rook E1. Now Bishop G6, Queen H8 is threatening with mate.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why Kasparov played King F8, King G2, Queen F6, Queen H7. Of course, we don't trade the queens, obviously. Queen F7. Attack the bishop. In case of Bishop F6, just Rook E1, and lot of threats are incoming. So Bishop D2 was a strong move, not allowing Rook E1 or Rook C1. Rook D1. And now it's very nice to see that not very long ago this rook was in a defensive stance, right? It had to protect F2. So now we free the queen, free the bishop, and all of a sudden now black has to defend, and now all of a sudden our rook can join the party, and basically the game is over. Bishop C3, Rook D3, and look what's coming here. Probably, I mean, Kasparov said that Bishop F6 was still a better defense, but after Rook F3, this doesn't look good. Maybe some G4, G5 is coming. I think maybe Engine could hold this position. I don't know how. I'm not so sure what's the evaluation here, but in practical level, this is over. This is over. Kasparov played Rook D6, tried to defend Rook F3 with Rook F6, Rook F3. I think he just realized that the Rook F6 is losing by Bishop G6. And now, if the queen moves here, this is just mating 1. If the queen moves anywhere else, just Queen H8, King D7, Queen takes G7, and it's over. Of course, he can always sack the queen, but this is just a losing endgame. So after Rook F3, he played King E7. Queen H8, D4, Queen C8. Again, typical principle in terms of opposite color bishops. This bishop is not helping at all. Even if it was on F6, it wouldn't help. Okay, it was just a matter of time. Rook F4, very nice move. Now the rook will find a way. Queen B7 check, Rook E4 check, King F7, Queen C4, King F8, Bishop H7. Now this is threatening. Rook F7 was only move. Queen E6. Now this is threatening. Queen D7, Queen E5, and now black is completely tied. And actually, Kasparov just resigned because there is no way to deal with this, and also Bishop G6 is coming. So I guess Queen D8. He can also give check here, Rook E7, Rook F4 check. This is also winning, and I assume even Bishop G6 is winning, but probably this is the easiest, no? King D8 and where is the mate? Where is the mate? I mean, Bishop D3 also looking good with Bishop B5 check. But I'm okay. This is just over. This is just over. So yeah, everything is winning. I'm pretty sure there are like 15 different wins here. So yeah, I mean, everything everything could happen because of this decision. This F takes E6. Simple as that. So maybe right now it's not visible why these squares are super important, but in long term he just suffered so badly. So of course, I mean, the position was holdable, but he had to find extremely precise moves, engine first moves to defend the position. And I mean, if Kasparov cannot hold this, I mean, Kasparov was of course, he was not the best defender. He was a dynamical player, but I think this was a serious mistake. Serious mistake number one. Serious mistake number one was not taking on d4, and a serious mistake number 2 is not taking with the queen on e6. I think this was just too much. Alrighty. So next week we will continue. Hopefully, okay. I will bring another game. So this was opposite color bishop 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I will bring more, because Karpov had like so many good, so many wonderful opposite colored bishop key games, but this is like a very, very underrated topic in my opinion. So people think that opposite colored bishops positions automatically draw, and no, this was never true. This was never true. And when I became Grandmaster and maybe International Master Grandmaster, I just realized that, oh my God, there are so many potentials in opposite. I won so many nice opposite colored bishop positions in my career, and because people don't really understand and don't really like take this type of positions and this type of this topic very seriously. It has a huge potentials to win games once you understand the key principles, and if you watch enough key games. All right, thank you, Forky, for joining as always.
Yes,
and
thank you.
See you next week.
Okay.
Sorry for taking this long today, but this was a very, very complex game, and this was probably this game is not meant for a 1 hour session. It's more like a 2 hour session game. But yeah, it's better to like check a little bit more than less. All right, see you next week.
Yes, have a great stream. Bye bye.
Yeah, bye bye.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining me on this lesson with my Grandmaster Tamás Bánusz. Have a great day and see you soon. Bye bye.